Recently, there was a Game Informer interview with the director of Kingdom Hearts, Tetsuya Nomura, and this has stirred up quite the bit of controversy in the community. Specifically, a question he responded to about the inclusion of Final Fantasy in the future of Kingdom Hearts. And since my theory videos are so heavily weighted on the lore of Final Fantasy, I thought it might be a good idea to put my opinion out there, because I kinda have to agree with some of the things he's saying here. The interview starts off with Tetsuya Nomura being asked, "Fans have been very concerned about the lack of Final Fantasy characters in newer entries. Do you still want to dial down on the amount of them in the series? Or is Kingdom Hearts 4 a chance to bring in more cameos?" And Nomura responded, "I understand there weren't that many Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3. One thing I want to clear up is that a lot of fans are saying Kingdom Hearts is this collaboration between Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters. But I really feel that is not the basic concept of Kingdom Hearts. That's not exactly what Kingdom Hearts is." So he starts off by saying the concept of Kingdom Hearts is not Final Fantasy meets Disney, which up until now, even me being an obsessed fan of the series would have said yes, Kingdom Hearts is a collaboration between Disney properties and Square Enix, whether that be Final Fantasy or The World Ends With You. He goes on to say, "When we released the first title, we had only a few original Kingdom Hearts characters. When they were interacting with really well-known, beloved Disney characters, I felt nobody really knew these new characters, so it was harder for them to stand their ground just yet. And so, we had a lot of Final Fantasy characters involved to lend a hand for everyone to get to know these new characters better." He's talking about Kingdom Hearts original characters there. Due to the lack of characters in Kingdom Hearts, he felt they needed more characters to help flesh out the Kingdom Hearts characters. But yeah, I kind of agree with this. There weren't that many Kingdom Hearts characters in Kingdom Hearts 1, and he felt he needed other characters to help flesh out those original characters. For instance, I want you to imagine Destiny Island for a second. Now imagine if it were only Sora, Riku, and Kairi. Yeah, there wouldn't be much going on there. So instead of creating a whole new cast of characters, they reached in their pocket for already established characters like Leon, Cloud, Sid, familiar faces to a JRPG fan. But let's not forget that Darkseid, an enemy that appears in pretty much every Kingdom Hearts, is originally a Final Fantasy enemy. We also have things like Moogles running their synthesis shops around every corner, and then like Kingdom Hearts 3 has Flans. So the DNA of Final Fantasy is super important to Kingdom Hearts, and I'm sure they'll maintain a balance of Square properties and Disney going forward, but it's interesting to see how every numbered title, people speculate, is this the Kingdom Hearts game that's finally gonna drop Disney and go Final Fantasy? I swear, I see this every time. And now Nomura isn't even entertaining the thought. Let's continue. Now there are so many original characters from Kingdom Hearts that are so well loved, and people want more of those characters. I agree with that. With Kingdom Hearts 3, since we had so many original characters, it was hard to find room to include more Final Fantasy characters. We're trying to find a good balance for that. I know that some fans were concerned about that, and we're too happy and wanted to see more Final Fantasy characters. That's something we definitely are thinking about. But just with the sheer number of original characters that we have now, it's hard to say what the exact balance is going to be and how it will play into Kingdom Hearts 4. We can't really give you a firm reply on this yet. And honestly, all this tells me right here is that Nomura wants more original characters for the Kingdom Hearts property. Not so much that he wants to do away with Final Fantasy characters entirely. And if done well, I think we will continue to see Final Fantasy cameos, even if they're a small part of the Kingdom Hearts story. But there is something I wanted to bring up. This is not the first time that he's talked about having trouble writing with so many characters involved. If you bought the Kingdom Hearts 3 Deluxe Edition, it came with a thank you message included inside of an art booklet that said, "I had a quite tough time writing the story this time around. So many characters appear in this game, with each of them having their own set of problems and needing to choose their own fate. They are characters that were born over the course of 10 plus years, and each character has fans who love them. I asked for everyone to see their stories to the end and see what each of them grasped from their stories. I rewrote the ending multiple times and took a lot of time deciding how I want it to play out on the screen." So yeah, this isn't exactly groundbreaking news. It's kind of to be expected in a way. Though I do want to note that we have concluded a lot of the stories between the Wayfinder trio, the Days trio, and earlier in this interview he made a note of how Kingdom Hearts 4 won't focus on continuing those stories. This gets me wondering how many characters from Kingdom Hearts Dark Road and Kingdom Hearts Missing Link are actually going to branch forward into Kingdom Hearts 4. Because if he's still having trouble fitting Final Fantasy characters into Kingdom Hearts 4, then I think we're in for a treat. I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited for all the new characters we're gonna meet. I personally feel even with all this said, a few cameos wouldn't hurt. I think a lot of us would be happy just seeing a Final Fantasy character that hasn't appeared in Kingdom Hearts before. It could be as simple as fighting them in a tournament. Personally, I'd absolutely lose my mind if I saw Lightning or Terra cameo. And bro, if I get to hear a Yoko Shimomura rendition of Metamorphosis attached to a Kefka fight, you already know it's gonna be hype. I'm more excited about that than a Sephiroth fight. But what do you think? If you enjoy Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy theory videos, be sure to check out my other content. I'm currently making my way through the Fabula Nova Crystallis games to find little lore nuggets that could tie into Kingdom Hearts theories. I also have a Patreon if you want to support the channel. I'm going to try to pump out videos every week. I'm still struggling with work-life balance. It's a whole thing. Thank you so much for watching. I'm iAyeCaptainKai, and I will see you in the next one.